Yes, boys, today's video, how I plan on lean bulking from 73 kg to 85, perhaps 90 in 2025. I've set the goal, I've set the vision for this year, and I want to improve my physique. And the only way to do that is to bring your body weight up and to gain as much fucking muscle as possible. So I figured it might be a little bit useful to kind of walk you guys through the plan, exactly how I plan on doing so you can perhaps use some of the information to kind of structure your own plan, or just kind of see how I do things and let this kind of be a starting point for the journey that I will be documenting over this year. I'm pretty excited for it. I've got a coach to help me go through this as well. And yeah, we're going to get pretty massive. I'm around 5'8", so 85 kg, 90 kg at my height should get me looking pretty fucking wedge. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. But without further ado, let's get straight into it, boys. So give you a rough idea of kind of where I'm at, my credentials for anyone who's new here, doesn't know who I am. So I currently weigh around 73 kg, 73.2 as of this morning, and this is my current physique. I took this the other day. Might be a little bit bloated as we had a bit of a send on the weekend. But yeah, I'm 5'8", 22 years old, and right now I've been training for around 5-6 years, since the age of 16. And I think I took it really seriously when I was in my first year of university. So I just turned 18 or so. So around 4 years, I'd say, consistently. Now, the goal is 85 to 90 kg by the end of 2025. And I want to do so keeping fat gain minimal. My goal is to look as aesthetic as possible. So I'm not going to be doing some crazy sort of dirty bulk to get as big as possible. I don't believe in that. Hence why I've given myself the whole year and perhaps even a little bit more to gain this amount of size. Obviously, fat gain will be inevitable, but we will keep it minimal. So I'm around 13% here. Argue amongst yourselves, maybe I'm a little bit more, who knows? But you can just about see my abs. So first step of the plan is essentially to get rid of our body fat, because basically if I'm going to get to 90 kg, which is around 12 kg, there's no way I should be starting at this point. And let this be a good little piece of advice for anyone who's a bit stuck and unsure whether they should bulk or not. You know, when you're looking to gain around 12 to 15 kg, don't start at this point. You know, I may appear fairly lean, but realistically this will disappear as soon as we start throwing some carbs in there and we start throwing some calories around. And as a result, I'll have to cut this bulk pretty short. So it's in my interest to get insanely lean now as quick as possible, to then allow myself a much bigger runway, so I don't have to cut the bulk, you know, in half. Like, no one really wants that, and it's a big mistake people make, right? They don't get lean enough to begin with, and then they can only spend, you know, 4 to 6 months in an off season in a gaining phase, and then they have to cut, and then they're going in this big cycle, when realistically you just want to do it once. You want to get as lean as possible and stay in this long period of time, then get lean, and then you're pretty much set. So that's kind of the idea. So rough plan, quick cutting phase to basically shed any excess fat and give ourselves that big runway, then a long-term push-up phase over the year, and then I will do a kind of maintenance phase, reverse diet, and then go into that dieting phase, get absolutely shredded. I'll probably just call it a day there. I think once I've hit my 85 goal and I'm pretty strong at that point, I'll be happy. So yeah, let's see what happens. Should be an interesting one, and that's kind of a rough idea of a strategy. So I'll walk you through kind of phase one, where I'm at the moment. So 4 to 6 weeks I'm doing a cut right now. I'm about week 2 in. 2.6k calories on my training day, 2.3k on non-training day, and these are my exact macros. So around 194 grams of protein, so roughly like 1.2 gram per pound of body weight. High carbs obviously on the training day, lower carbs on the non-training day. Right now I think I'm doing upper lower 4 days per week, and cardio is at 6 by 25 minutes, around 140 BPM, fat burning range, 10k steps per day, and body's responding well, getting pretty lean. So the goal is to drop to around 8 to 10% body fat whilst focusing on retaining my strength, which is pretty good at the moment because I have not dropped calories too crazily. My cardio is not excessive. I'm having 6 meals a day, and my hunger is pretty managed pretty well. Carbs before and after training. So yeah, it's not too bad. I've got my pre-workout meal in a second after this video, and that's around 150 grams of carbs, which will just pretty much fuel me for the whole session. A little bit of intra-workout as well, so should be good. But yeah, that's pretty much phase one, get nice and lean. Next, we then go into the main focus, the lean bulk. the push-up phase. And I thought I'd walk you through exactly how I'm going to structure it. So, nutrition-wise, number one, calorie surplus. You've obviously got to be consuming more than you are burning. So we will begin with a 200 to 300 calorie surplus. We will slowly reverse out with this whole cutting phase with a similar setup in terms of the macro distribution. More carbs on the training day, less carbs on the rest day. I mean, calories increase gradually as strength and scale weight plateaus. Big mistake I used to make, and people can make, is just simply upping calories for the sake of it. You should up your calories and change your nutrition according to what the scale does and essentially what your strength is doing. If your strength is going up or your lifts are going up and the scale weight is going up, then you do not need to eat more food. You should be trying to milk that for everything it's got, being very, very happy with the situation you're in, and then for whatever reason that does slow down, it's not the end of the world, we just up the calories in, and that way you keep fat nice and minimal, and then you don't have to do a massive cutting phase and yo-yo and going into this big cycle, which is bollocks. So make sure you do it nice and gradually. Higher carb days around the heavy lifts to ensure muscle gain. One of my goals, as you may know, is 140 kg bench. Therefore, this requires a lot of carbohydrate, so no messing around. 6 meals a day is my current setup, nice and balanced, including some fruit and veg. 6 meals a day is always the trick. It just allows for when you're cutting to kind of balance your hunger throughout the day. If you were to have all your calories in one meal, you know, you're going to get pretty hungry in the morning and the evening, if I'm being honest. And the same thing goes when you're kind of eating a lot of calories as well. It's quite nice to balance it over a certain amount of meals. For example, if you're eating 3,000 calories, which is quite a lot, 6 meals of 500 is pretty manageable if you're just very consistent with eating 2 to 3 hours between meals. So that's what I would say there. Now, 3 to 5 litres of water per day. Little trick, big bottle of this, 1.5 litres, just 1 in the morning, 1 at the gym, 1 in the evening. It's easy. If you get one of the smaller bottles, like the 500 milliliter ones, so much more friction to have 5 litres. You have to fill it up 10 times. I have to fill this up 3 times, so that's easy. And then 6 grams of Himalayan pink salt, just pretty much with every single meal, keeping us nice and hydrated. In terms of food, whole foods, organic and unprocessed ideally. I don't really like to eat anything that's unhealthy because it just makes me feel shit, and I always want to optimize performance. I want the brain working as good as it can possibly be, and testosterone is also a very, very high factor. We want to keep that testosterone nice and high, and any of this unprocessed shit food is not going to be good for us. Not to mention the potential for diseases that can come from all of this shit food. So we keep our food nice and clean. Minimal off-plan meals, that will probably go out the window when we get to, the 4K calories towards the tail end of it. But until then, I will keep very disciplined because we want to keep the brain nice and sharp. And here's an example there of eating, kind of probably will change depending on hunger and things. But at the moment, what I'm running with at the moment, I fucking love it. Protein oats in the morning with some blueberries and dark chocolate, chicken, some sweet potato and broccoli, some steak mince or some steak, rice, peppers and broccoli, Greek yogurt, dark chocolate, strawberries. I imagine when we start adding more calories, we'll probably add some oats or granola in there. And then my pre-workout meal will always be bagel, honey, protein shake, some dates. Maybe I'll have the protein shake after, to be fair, with a little bit more fruit. But always some honey, bagel, dates, quick release and carbs. And then, depending on where I'm at in the cycle, at the moment, I'm just kind of having fruit in the evening and a protein shake. I'm not eating the eggs, avocado, toast. But later on, I probably will when we need more calories. So that's kind of a nutrition side of things. And in terms of supplements, just your basics, creatine mid-workout for, increased ATP, energy, all that shit. Zinc and magnesium before bed, good sleep stack to help you improve your sleep quality and also increase your testosterone. Speaking of which, vitamin D3 and K2. And then your basics like omega-3, multivitamin, B, A, E, all this shit. That's pretty good. And then whey protein. That's about it. Nothing too crazy. Just the basics. But you don't need that shit. Creatine is very useful. Essential amino acids. But again, not necessary. Just if you really want to take it seriously. Now, in terms of training, I've just skipped 2. Oops. Here's a split. What we're doing now is upper lower. But then when it gets to a point where we need to put on more muscle, I need to be training more. So push, pull, legs, and then another push day. And then a posterior chain day. So pretty much all of my back, hamstring, calves, glutes, all of that will be in one day. So it's 5 days per week, 2 days of rest, focusing on progressive overload every single session with pretty much all lifts go into failure or close proximity to failure, and a high focus on tempo and tracking all of my lifts. One thing I used to make a mistake of with my last bulk was just thinking that because I'm having loads of calories, I'm now strong. I have the entitlement just to ego lift, which is always fun. However, tempo and slowing down your lifts and time under tension is essentially, the core tenets of hypertrophy, how you actually grow muscle. So if you are looking to grow muscle, tempo is probably the most important thing. And I can make a whole different video on this if you'd like, but just understanding the basics of how a 6-second eccentric or certain exercises should be actually set up. For example, if we're training a Smith incline press, I'll probably do 3-1-1-1 tempo, which is kind of like a 3-second concentric. 1 pause at the bottom, 1 up, and then 1 at the top, and then so forth. And that just allows you to really, really focus on mind to muscle connection and making sure you're stimulating enough growth. And then another mistake I used to make, for some reason I thought cardio was counterintuitive for bulking. It definitely is, because you're burning more calories, but at the end of the day, you got to think about longevity and actual health. Like your heart needs to be working all the time. So basic health standpoint, you need to be doing 2 hours of cardio per week. So I'll be doing that, and you just eat the calories back, or you treat yourself to an off-plan meal, or whatever it is. That and 10k steps per day. I speak about this all the time. Like if you're not hitting 10k steps, like you're just not gonna feel good, both physically and mentally. Because the fact that you're not doing 10k steps per day suggests you're sitting down all day, you're not getting outside, or you're not leaving your house for whatever reason it is. And I can literally correlate all of the best days with the amount of steps that I've had, and I've just realised you always need to make time to do your steps. It's the most important thing, especially when you work from home or you work online. Yeah, it's an easy trade-off because you get more work done, but if you optimise your life and you find things to do whilst walking, and just implement simple walks after meals, you'll always feel a little bit better. But yeah, piece of advice. Anyway, that's training sorted. Now, in terms of tracking, weekly weigh-ins. So I've obviously got a coach, so I do check-ins as well. Weekly weigh-ins, progress photos. I can be checking, where I'm growing muscle and where I'm gaining a little bit of fat. Assessing PRs in every lift each week as well. And you obviously got body measurements. As our arms start to grow, we'll be measuring the biceps, measuring the chest, measuring the waist to see how large we are getting. And that's pretty much kind of the main plan. Now, what could go wrong? This is what I learned from last time when I did my first initial bulk, and I know how to fix them in advance. So a little bit of advice for anyone here. Number 1, plateaus. Now, plateaus are normal. It's your body adapting. It's very, very simple. You just need to eat more food. If you are struggling to lift more, you need to eat more food, which is why it's so important not to put yourself on more food at the start, because your body will adapt. If you put yourself on 4k calories instantly, your body will adapt. And then where do you go from there? 4.5, 5k, 6k, fucking 7k. And it's just not ideal. So it's like a case of taking it really, really slow and having that preparation, and then using calories and food as a tool to prevent plateaus. Not to mention, you've also got deloads and breaks for recovery. So eventually there will come a time where, 2 to 3 months into a training block, progress will eventually kind of plateau or stagnate. That's just sometimes your central nervous system acting up, and it's just like, right, we need a fucking break. Because if you think progress is just linear or exponential, it's never the case. You got to think of it like a stock chart. It might be pretty bullish, but there's a few setbacks, a few pullbacks, just to make sure it can get the second leg going. And that's pretty much what you should be doing with your training, right? You need to sometimes have a little pullback just to make sure that you give yourself that recovery. You take 1 week off, you take 1 step backwards to go 2 steps forward. So that's number 1, how I kind of go about plateaus. Also making sure you're doing the basics, such as you're actually eating right and you're getting enough sleep and you're not fucking, overtraining. That's kind of what we do with plateaus. Next, overeating and drinking. I don't really have a problem with overeating because my appetite's always been pretty light. Drinking, however, that's never, a great shout, because you're probably not going to hit your calories and macros bang on, which you kind of need to be doing. And also, you're probably not going to hit your training sessions. So everything in moderation. You're definitely, you can be a little bit more lenient with it when you're in a gaining phase as opposed to a dieting phase. There's more kind of room for error there, but something to be aware of, and just kind of understanding your motivation. My motivation is really, really to take my physique to the next level and get, honestly, into elite shape this year. Like, I want people to honestly look at my physique and be like, what the fuck? Like, how is that even possible? So my motivation is pretty high. and I think I will be keeping that to a minimum. Under eating is very, very simple. It's very, very easy to do, to under eat. You know, if you don't have a strategy, you can get to the end of the day and just, oh, I can't be bothered to eat my calories, especially when you have to eat a large amount. This just comes down to planning, just having a meal plan that actually works your schedule, and actually having everything kind of organized with your life, having the shopping done, having the meal prep sorted. Like, I can tell you how easy this is once it's done, but like when it's not done and you're just kind of shooting from the hip and you're just making whatever's in the fridge and you're tracking your calories to try and make it fit, like, to do this every single day, it takes energy. But having a structure, having a routine that you just follow, like even when you're tired and you can't be asked, that's easy. So it just comes down to actually having a structure. That's how you prevent under eating. And then injuries, obviously focusing on tempo and time under tension is going to prevent that. Ego lifting, although it's fun, it absolutely fucking ruins your your longevity and probably results in a few injuries. So those are the kind of few things that I think could go wrong and how I plan on proactively preventing them. So a little bit of food for thought, some information you guys could be using. Now, my motivation. My goal is simple: to reach my full potential. I've pretty much said a minute ago, I want people to look at my physique and go like, what the fuck? And I feel like I've got to a decent stage. I'm pretty lean, but there's always more. I've got some lagging areas that I want to improve, and I feel like a large bulk should do the trick for this. I want to lead from the front, and I want to make sure that I can show what is possible. So I figured it'd be an interesting play to just kind of walk you guys through where I'm at the moment, what my strategy is, and maybe come back to this in a year or so, just so you can kind of understand exactly like what my thought processes is, how I kind of plan things, how I've done that with my coach, how I even plan things for my clients. And the goal is just to get fucking massive, which is, should, you know, be most people's goals when it comes to bodybuilding. At the end of the day, you're just trying to put on as much size as possible and look as aesthetic as possible. And these are the important times that matters: the bulking, the gaining phases. So I figured I'd create a nice little plan to make that pretty streamlined and understandable for anyone who wants to do the same thing. Perhaps you are also 5'8" and 73 kg and want to get to 85. You may steal this video and use this to your advantage. But honestly, this is pretty like surface level stuff. I do this for a living every single fucking day. I absolutely love it. So I could happily speak with you guys like in detail about this and exactly kind of what the strategies are. If you do want to know more about this, because genuinely like this is just like the basics, I can go into so much more detail and pretty much map out your whole transformation and show you exactly how to do it. Believe it or not, with the right structure, anything is possible. It genuinely is. That's what I've taught myself over these few years. It just comes down to just actually knowing how to organize things. I mean, it's easy. Like, it's just a case of being consistent and just having that structure and knowing exactly how to train and how to eat right for the occasion. You're absolutely sweet. So if you would like a little bit of help, get in touch. Link in the description. But other than that, boys, that's the plan. And I will document every step of the journey. I'm excited for this one. And if you follow me on Instagram, you obviously see that. YouTube, I'll give updates. When I go away, we'll be doing a lot more gym vlogs as well. So it should be interesting. But yeah, boys, that's today's video. I hope that was useful. Gonna go hit the gym now. It's pool day. So yeah, I will leave you guys to it. Subscribe to follow along. All the best.